Hey, it's Yay for Yarn, and today I'm reviewing the Knit Picks Options Foursquare Short Interchangeable Needle Set. So let's get started. Now, I have not had these needles for a terribly long time yet, but I have been using them quite a bit since I got them. These are kind of like the regular Options interchangeable needles, but they're kind of different. So I got these to try them out, and I kind of wanted something a little bit shorter, and these were the perfect length. And not only were they the perfect length, but laminated birch is my favorite material in a knitting needle, and all of my favorite knitting needles are from Knit Picks. So far I love these, and I want to show you what I like about them. So what you're getting here is 7 different sizes of needle tips that all screw onto these cables. You get 2 of these cables that are, they call them 16-inch cables, but that just means that once the tips are attached, they are a total of 16 inches long. And you get 2 of those cables. I'm using the other one in a project right now. And you also get these little end caps, so that when you need to use these tips on another project, then you can take them off and put the end caps on them and save that for later. And they also come with this little cable tightening key, and this is necessary for tightening the tips onto the needles to make sure that they don't come unscrewed while you're knitting. So here's most of the rest of my interchangeable needle collection. I'm going to pull out a set of tips just so you can see them. These are size 9s, and the ones on my cable right now are size 10s. So we're going to use this one to compare. These tips are the regular tips. These are the rainbow ones. I also have the blue and green ones, which are called Caspian. And these are significantly longer than the short ones. And the purpose of having short tips is that you can connect them onto these really short cables and work with them comfortably. If you were to connect the long tips to the short cables, they actually tell you not to do that because you can break your tips because it's too much, it would have to bend the tips to do that. They're not real flexible, but enough of it would, if you knit like that all the time, it would potentially break them. So you can't attach the long tips to the short cables, but you can attach these short tips to any length of a cable that you want. So if you want a set of interchangeable needles, but you only want to buy one set, then I would suggest getting the short tips, getting the short set, and then you can get other lengths of cables to go with it, which the cables are pretty cheap. And you can still use these tips no matter what length cable you're on, and they're still comfortable, just as comfortable as the other ones. But that if you can only get one set, I would suggest getting the shorter ones and getting a bunch of different length of cables to go with it, as opposed to if you want to buy 2 sets. I actually did that. I bought the long ones first, and then I got the short ones later. And I like both. I like the feel of both of them. But the difference with the Foursquare is that the actual needle tip is not round, it's square. The sides of it are square. It has 4 sides, and they kind of smooth out into this pointed tip. And it's very smooth. It's the perfect amount of friction, which is why I love laminated birch so much. It's just enough friction to keep the stitches on your needle so they don't fall off. It's not too slick, but it's not so much friction that it slows you down. These are my absolute favorite needles to work with as far as material. But these are round needles. So if you compare the size 10 Foursquare ones with the size 9 round ones, the 9s look bigger, but they're not. They look and feel slightly bigger, but the difference is in this squareness. The squareness, it has the same circumference and diameter and all that stuff as the round one, but because it's a different shape, it feels and looks a little bit smaller. But the purpose of that square shape is to give you better grip, which I really like on a shorter needle, because if the tips were this length and they were slippery, or if they were, you know, hard to grab, then it wouldn't make sense to knit with this type of needle, because you would be losing it. Because especially if you're working like this with your fingertips, you don't want to be losing your grip. Now, I have not tried, they also have a short set with the Caspian, which is round like this one. I have not tried that one, but I personally like this square shape on the short needle because it gives you extra grip. It's very comfortable, but when you have yarn on the needles, it doesn't feel square. It doesn't feel abnormal. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is, you know, this is a totally different kind of needle, because it's not. It's just that slight square shape gives you a little extra grip, and it's very comfortable to work with. Now, one of the things that these interchangeables are known for, as far as the Knit Picks interchangeables, is that the cable has no curve memory to it. You know, sometimes when you buy a circular knitting needle, the cable comes all rolled up in, whether it's interchangeable or not, the cable comes all rolled up, and then when you go to knit with it, it's constantly trying to kink back into the position that it was rolled up in the package. And these do not do that. They don't have any memory to them. They do have a slight curve. So if I lay this down, if I lay it down straight, it's going to want to curve to a point. But you're going to be using these where you're holding both needles in your hand at the same time. So yes, you do want some curve. So it doesn't resist being bent into a curve at all. But it doesn't, you know, if I roll this up and keep it rolled up like that, it's not going to stay like that. It's not going to hold that shape. It's going to go back to this gentle curve shape. So what the beauty of an interchangeable needle is that you can take the tips off. You can attach an end cap, which are these right here. These are end caps, and they screw right on to the end of the cable. So you can use the tips for something else. Or if you want to switch needle sizes in the middle of a project, these are perfect for that, because you can just remove the tips and put on a different set of tips. So to change tips, what you're going to do is insert this little cable tightening key. It's a pretty sturdy, thick wire. You're going to insert it through the hole in the cable, and you're going to screw that needle tip off of the cable, like so. And to put it back on, you just screw it back on and use that tightening key to secure it. It gives you something to twist against to tighten the needle on. If you don't use the cable tightening key, then it will come unscrewed as you're knitting. So this is here to have something to twist against so that it will stay on very securely. And I have, as long as you use the cable tightening key, I have never had one come off while I was knitting. Now this set also comes in a very nice little clear vinyl case with a snap on it. All the different size slots are labeled with their size. This one right here in the center is kind of obstructed by the snap, but if you just push the cardboard up or down a little bit, then you can see it, like so. But I don't mind so much because I know that in between 6 and 8 is the 7. And the 5s are missing right now because they are in a project, and the 10s are right here. But you do get 2 of these cables. You get 7 different sizes of needle tips, and you also get 2 sets of end caps and 2 tightening keys. And it has this nifty little pocket on each side of the back where you can keep the tightening keys and the end caps. Another thing that I love about the Knit Picks interchangeables is that there is no bump or anything that your stitches have to slide up over to get onto the needle. When you're knitting along and you need to scoot more stitches up onto the needle, especially if they're looser, they just naturally slide up very easily. There's no like little ridge, at the join or at the place where the metal connects to the laminated birch. There's no bump or ridge or anything that the stitches have to, there's no speed bump there for the stitches to have to go over. They just slide over very naturally because it's totally smooth. Now the only thing that I have that could be a negative point for you if you have this Knit Picks interchangeable needle case. This is like a vinyl or similar type of faux leather. And it has like this flap in the middle where you can slide all your needle tips in there, and you can put the cables and other stuff on the sides, which is very nice. And I love this case. I use it for all my interchangeables. And I do have a few fixed circulars from Knit Picks that I also stick in here too. The only thing with the short tips and the case here is that they do not go all the way in to the slot, because the bottom of the slot is way down here because it's made for longer tips, which you can still get them out if you just run your finger up through, you know, just kind of push them up from the outside, and they do come out, you know, pretty easily. But if you want them secure, like these over here, they stick out about an inch. If I want these to stick out about an inch, then they're going to fall out because they're kind of short. So if you do use this case, then you're going to want to slide them in so that you can just see the little bitty tips. Or if you want, you can slide them in all the way, and you just slide them out by pushing them up through the little channel that they slide into. So what I like to do with this case is I like to take, starting with the smallest size, and go like this. Now on this side, the big ones are on the opposite side as on this side, because, you know, even though it's the same side, you're looking at it from the opposite direction. So here I have my 4s, 5, 6, I've got 2 7s, there's an 8, there's a 9, I have a 10 that's being used, a 10.5 is being used, and these are my 11s. But for this side, I'm going to start my smallest ones on the opposite side, because these are where the skinny slots are. So there's my 4, I'm using the 5 right now. Here's the 6, the 7, the 8, and then here's the 9s, and the 10s are attached to the cables. The only thing with this case, as much as I love this case, is that for one, the slots are too tall for these tips, and because these tips feel a little bit narrower, even though it's the same size of needle, it's the same diameter circumference, it's still, because it's not round, it feels smaller, and it kind of is smaller as far as when you hold it. So when they slide in, these are my 9s from the other side, which is my long tips. If I put these into the same slot, they have a little bit of a tighter fit into that slot, where these don't fit as snugly. So that's why you need to push them in. And if, you know, because you can't see this as well, you want to be looking for whether or not there's a big bump in that channel to tell if there's, you can feel if there's needles in there or not. Even if you push them in all the way, you can still feel if they're there, but you can't really see them very well because the slots are too long and too wide. And I will probably still keep them in this case just because I love this case so much. But if you don't have this case, don't worry about it. But if you do have this case, then you might consider just keeping them in the vinyl case and in the end zipper pocket, or just folding them up inside like so, because the slots in the case are not super ideal for this needle tip. So what I'm going to do is just keep them in the vinyl case, and I'm going to keep the vinyl case inside of this case, and it will fit. I have a lot of stuff in the side zipper pockets, but it will still fit. So I'm just, because this little vinyl case is so thin and small, it's very compact, because the tips are so short, then I can just kind of lay it in there and sandwich it together and zip it shut, and it will still zip very easily, even though I have a bunch of stuff in both end pockets. And if you don't want it to fall out when you unzip it, just slip it into one of these end zipper pockets and it will not fall out. And one more thing that I really like about these is that even though these come with black cables, they still match the purple cables and the green cables from the Caspian and the rainbow sets. So if you already have different colored cables from your other sets, or if you want to purposely get different colored cables in different sizes so that you know you know, well, the 24-inch one is purple and the 30-inch one is green, then you can totally do that and they will still match, even though it's a totally different colorway. It's some of the same shades. This purple right here is the same purple that is in the rainbow ones, and this green is the same green that is in the Caspian ones. So no matter what cable that you get to go with these, if you get longer cables to go with these tips, they will still match because they're the same shades that are in these other ones. So you can see this has got the same green in it, and this one's got the same purple in it. So the last thing I want to show you is that you can also get these size ID tags, which will also match because they're the same purple. And these are for when you take the tips off of your needle and you want to save that project for later and use those tips on a different project right now. You can take the tips off and you slide an ID tag onto the end of your cable before you put on your end cap, which just screws on so that the stitches do not come off the needle or off of the cable. They stay there, and the ID tag is there to tell you when you come back to this project later, you know what size needle you were using on it. Because, you know, even if the pattern tells you use such and such size needle, if you had to use a different size to get the correct gauge, then you may or may not remember that when you come back to it later, because sometimes I don't come back to my projects until a whole lot later. So they have the millimeters on one side, and the other side has the US size number. So that makes it very easy to tell when you put your project down or when you take the tips off to use them for something else. It makes it very easy to tell what size you were using where you left off. As for this case though, the cable very easily rolls up because it's so short, and it can slide into one of these back pockets with the end caps and the tightening keys if you want to keep those short cables separate and keep them with your short tips. The main use that you would need these shorter needles for is things like hats. You can do baby hats on them, you can do baby clothes, baby sweaters, and stuff like that. If you're doing a sweater, an adult size sweater that is worked in the round, where the sleeves are worked in the round, then these are perfect for that. Basically anything with a small circumference, not necessarily socks, because that's a little too small, but anything that's about, I would say, 14 plus inches around. About 14 inches around is a good approximate circumference for these needles. As a minimum, you might maybe be able to go down to about 13, but these are really good for anything where you want to knit a shorter circumference, a smaller tube, so to speak, on your needles, but you don't want to use double pointed needles because they can be a bit cumbersome because there's so many ends sticking out everywhere. And the points on these are sharp enough. They're very sharp, but they're not too sharp that they hurt your fingers or anything when you poke them. And you probably will, because I poke my fingers with the needle tips all the time, and because these are the perfect sharpness, they do not scratch or anything. So I really, really love these needles. I love them just as much as my other Knit Picks needles, but these have their own purpose. So I will still be using the other ones, but these are specifically for smaller projects, and I can still attach my longer cables to these if I just want to have that extra grip on the tips because I like the feel of it. So I love these. I will use them just as much as my other ones because I use the other ones all the time. I generally use my Knit Picks needles for every single project that I knit because they're so comfortable, and I love these needles so much. Literally my only con is that the case that I have that is made by Knit Picks, this is actually designed for the longer tips. The case is not really made for these shorter tips because the tips are too short for the pockets that they're supposed to go in. But other than that, this is a really, really great set, and I'm going to be using these a lot. I've already used them in at least 2 projects, and I will be using them in another one in a video coming up. So if you try out these needles, I would love to hear how you like them in the comments below. If you have any questions about these needles, comment below and I will be happy to answer. And if you are interested in getting these needles, see the description box for the link to the product page on the Knit Picks website. Yes, it is an affiliate link, and if you do make a purchase through clicking that link, then I may receive a small commission for referring you to their site, but it doesn't cost you any extra. You get the same price that you would pay otherwise if you didn't click through the link. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If this was helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up. If you have these needles or you like to try these needles out, let me know in the comments below. Look for upcoming videos with projects in them that I'm going to be using these needles for. And don't forget to subscribe, making sure you click the little bell next to the subscribe button to be notified of new videos. Thanks for watching. Bye.